The night sky over Montana burned with colors that shouldn't exist. Daho stood on his porch, coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips, watching what looked like a falling star tear across the darkness. But stars didn't scream. Stars didn't leave trails of fire and metal behind them. And stars definitely didn't crash into the valley 3 miles from his ranch. The impact shook the ground beneath his feet. His daughter Jiwon rushed out of the house, her phone already in her hand. "Dad, did you see that?" "What was it?" Daho set down his cup and grabbed his truck keys. "Don't know. But whatever it is, it's burning in our valley. We better check it out." They drove through the darkness, following the glow on the horizon. The closer they got, the stranger everything felt. The air tasted wrong, like metal and ozone. Small pieces of debris littered the dirt road, some still glowing with heat. When they finally reached the crash site, Daho had to stop the truck and just stare. The ship looked like nothing he'd ever seen. It was huge, maybe the size of a passenger plane, but the shape was all wrong. Organic curves mixed with geometric patterns. Parts of it were still intact, while others had scattered across the valley floor. And it was definitely a ship, because things that fell from space didn't have windows or doors. "We should call someone," Jiwon whispered. "The police, the military, someone." Before Daho could answer, one of the ship's panels fell away with a hiss of escaping air. Figures stumbled out into the darkness. At first, Daho thought they were people wearing some kind of suits. Then one of them moved into the light from his truck's headlights, and he realized they weren't people at all. They were close, but not quite right. Taller, thinner, with skin that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Their eyes were too large, adapted for seeing in low light. There were maybe 40 of them, including children clinging to adults. Some were injured, limping, or being carried by others. One of them approached slowly, hands raised in what looked like a universal gesture of peace. He was tall, with markings on his face that pulsed with soft blue light. When he spoke, the sounds were nothing like human language, musical and strange. Jiwon stepped forward before her father could stop her. She pulled out her phone and opened a translation app, knowing it wouldn't work but trying anyway. The alien seemed to understand what she was attempting. He pulled a small device from his belt and pressed it against his throat. When he spoke again, the device crackled and sparked, but English words came out broken and mechanical. "Please, help. We escape. Bad people chase. Ship broken. Not mean come here, lost." Daho looked at the group of aliens. Children crying. Wounded being tended by others with desperate urgency. Old ones sitting in the dirt, too exhausted to move. He'd seen that look before, in refugees on the news from war zones. These weren't invaders. They were people running from something terrible. "Jiwon, get the medical kit from the truck and call Doc Martinez. Tell him we need him out here, no questions." He turned to the alien. "We'll help you, but you need to tell us what's chasing you." The alien's name was Hyun. Over the next hour, while Jiwon and a handful of neighbors who'd seen the crash helped tend to the wounded, Hyun explained. His people were called Valtine. They'd been living on a colony world when the Krenth Empire arrived. The Krenth conquered species, enslaved them, used them up, and moved on to the next world. The Valtine had stolen this ship and run. They'd been running for months, jumping randomly through space to avoid being tracked. "The jump drive broke," Hyun said, his translator working better now that one of the other Valtine had repaired it. "We came out in wrong place. Unknown space. Found your world by accident when looking for place to land and fix ship." He looked at the burning wreckage. "But ship 2 broken now. Cannot fix. How long before they find you?" Daho asked. Hyun's face did something that might have been their version of a grimace. "Ship beacon still working. Cannot turn off from outside. They will follow beacon. Maybe 3 days. Maybe 4. One of the other Valtine approached. She was smaller, with the same glowing markings as Hyun but in green instead of blue. Hyun introduced her as his sister, Mira, their medical officer. She'd been working on the wounded but had run out of supplies. "How many hurt?" Doc Martinez asked. The old doctor had arrived 20 minutes ago and hadn't even blinked at the aliens. He just started helping. 12 serious, many more with small injuries, Mira said through her own translator. "But no medicine left. No equipment. If we not get help, some will die." Daho made a decision then that would change everything. He'd always been a practical man. He raised cattle, fixed fences, and helped his neighbors when they needed it. These aliens might not be from Earth, but right now they were in his valley and they needed help. That was enough. "All right, here's what we're going to do," he said. There's an old mining complex in the mountains about 20 miles from here. Been abandoned for years, but it's sturdy and it's hidden. We'll move everyone there. Jiwan, start calling people we trust. We're going to need supplies, medicine, food, and a lot of help. Dad, Jiwan said carefully, these Krenth people sound dangerous. Really dangerous. Are we sure we want to get involved in this? Daeho looked at the Valtine children huddled together, scared and far from home. He looked at the wounded being treated by his neighbors and a doctor who'd come out in the middle of the night to help strangers. He thought about what kind of world he wanted his daughter to live in. These people are on Earth now, he said firmly. That means they're under our protection. I don't care what's chasing them. We don't abandon people who need help. That's not who we are, Hyun stepped forward. His translator crackled as he spoke. You not understand. Krenth very powerful. Weapons you not have. Ships you not have. If you help us, they will hurt you. Maybe destroy you. We are nothing to you. Why you do this? Daeho put his hand on the alien's shoulder. Through the strange skin he could feel Hyun trembling, not from cold, but from exhaustion and fear and probably a dozen emotions humans didn't have words for. Because you need help, Daeho said simply. That's reason enough. As the sun started to rise over the valley, trucks began arriving. Neighbors, friends, people Daeho had known his whole life. They brought blankets, food, medicine, whatever they could carry. Nobody asked why. They just saw people in need and started helping. The Valtine watched all of this in silence. They'd spent months running through space, seeing only cruelty and violence from advanced civilizations. Now they were on a primitive world, and complete strangers were risking everything to help them. Mira stood next to her brother as humans loaded Valtine children into trucks, with a gentleness that made her chest ache. I don't understand them, she whispered in their own language. This makes no sense. We brought danger to their world. They gain nothing from this. Hyun watched Jiwan teaching a Valtine child how to buckle a seatbelt, both of them laughing despite not speaking the same language. He watched Daeho organizing people with the calm authority of someone who'd been helping his community his whole life. Maybe that's exactly why they're doing it, Hyun said quietly. They see people who need help. And they help. It's that simple to them. The Valtine refugees loaded into vehicles and headed into the mountains. Behind them, their broken ship burned itself out, the beacon still pulsing its signal into space. Somewhere out there, something cruel and powerful was following that signal. But for the first time in months, the Valtine felt something they'd almost forgotten. They felt hope. Because for reasons they couldn't quite understand, humanity had decided to stand between them and the darkness. And somehow that changed everything. The old mining complex sat deep in the Montana mountains, hidden by forest and years of neglect. Taemin arrived early the next morning with 2 trucks full of supplies. He'd gotten the call from Jiwan at 3 in the morning and hadn't asked a single question. When a friend needed help, you showed up. That was the code he'd lived by in the army, and he lived by it still. What he found in those mountains made him stop and stare. Aliens. Real aliens. With glowing skin and eyes like cats. They were setting up camp in the old mining buildings while humans hurried around bringing them food and blankets. Taemin had jumped into combat zones with less hesitation than he felt right now, but he walked forward anyway. Took you long enough, Jiwan said with a tired smile. Thanks for coming. You said you needed help. Didn't mention it was for aliens. Taemin looked around at the Valtine. They friendly? Very. Also very scared. Jiwan led him to one of the buildings where Mira was treating wounded. They're refugees running from something called the Krenth Empire. And the Krenth are coming here. Over the next hour, Taemin met Hyun and learned the full story. The Krenth Empire conquered worlds for resources and slaves. They had weapons that could burn cities from orbit, ships that moved faster than anything humans had built, an army that had never lost a war. And they were following the beacon from the crashed ship, which would bring them to Earth in less than 3 days. Can we destroy the ship? Taemin asked. Stop the beacon? Hyun shook his head. Ship core still active. If we destroy wrong way, explosion will be like small nuclear bomb. We'll kill many people, destroy Valley. And Krenth still know general area we crashed. They will search. Taemin nodded slowly. He'd faced bad odds before, but this was different. This was fighting an enemy that had technology centuries beyond Earth's. But looking at the Valtine children playing with human kids, sharing food even though they couldn't really talk to each other, He knew there was no choice. These people needed protection. We need more help, he said. A lot more. By that evening, Taman had called in favors from his old military contacts. Soman arrived first. She'd been an Air Force engineer before retiring to work for a private aerospace company. When she saw the wreckage of the Valtine ship, her eyes went wide with excitement and fear. This technology, she breathed, examining a piece of the hull. This is decades beyond us, maybe centuries. She looked at Taman. If the people chasing them have ships like this, we're in serious trouble. Tell me something I don't know, Taman muttered. More people arrived over the next day. Hyegen, a linguistics professor from the university, came to help with translation. She worked with the Valtine translators to build a better understanding between the two species. Jinwoo drove up from California, a tech genius who'd dropped out of MIT because he was bored. When he saw the alien technology, he practically vibrated with excitement. We could learn so much from this, Jinwoo said, already taking apart a piece of equipment. If we survive, this could change everything for humanity. Focus on the surviving part first, Soman said, but she was smiling. The Valtine began sharing what they knew about the Krenth. Hyun and several other engineers worked with Soman, explaining the principles behind their technology. It was like trying to explain computers to someone from the Stone Age. Humans didn't have the basic scientific understanding to replicate most of it, but maybe, just maybe, they could understand enough to fight back. Mira shared medical knowledge with Doc Martinez and a combat medic named Unji, who'd served with Taman in Afghanistan. The differences between human and Valtine biology were significant, but not as much as expected. Both species needed oxygen, water, and similar nutrients. Both felt pain, fear, and hope. They're not so different from us, Unji said, watching Mira teach her how to set a broken bone on a Valtine patient. Physically different, sure, but inside, they're just people trying to protect their families. On the second day, government vehicles appeared on the roads leading to the mountains. They'd been inevitable. You couldn't hide 40 aliens and a crashed spaceship from satellites and military radar. Director Kang arrived with a team of officials and soldiers. He was a careful man, someone who'd spent his career navigating politics and regulations. But even he seemed overwhelmed by the situation. We need to move the aliens to a secure government facility, Kang said, standing in front of the mining complex. This is a matter of national security. Global security. They're not going anywhere, Daeho said flatly. The rancher stood with a group of locals, and none of them looked like they planned to move. These people came to us for help. We gave our word we'd protect them. Mr. Daeho, you don't understand the danger, Kang said, trying to remain patient. An hostile alien empire is coming to Earth. We need to handle this carefully. Carefully. Taman stepped forward. You mean hand them over? Avoid a fight by giving the Krenth what they want. Kang's silence was answer enough. No, Jiwon said. She was young, still in college, but her voice carried the same conviction as her father's. We don't trade people for safety. That's not what humans do. That's not what we should do. The standoff lasted for hours. More locals arrived, standing with the refugees. Veterans like Taman made it clear they wouldn't let the government take the Valtine by force. Finally, Kang made a call to Washington. The conversation was heated and long. When he emerged from his vehicle, he looked tired. The president wants to talk to the aliens directly, Kang said, and then we'll make a decision about how to proceed. Hyun agreed to a video conference. Through the translator, he explained what the Krenth had done to his people. The colonies burned, the families separated, the children taken for experiments. He showed them data from the Valtine ship, images of worlds conquered and species enslaved. The president listened in silence. And if we refuse to hand you over? The president asked. What will the Krenth do? They will take us by force, Hyun said quietly. They will hurt anyone who stands in their way. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. I tell you this so you understand danger. If you help us, you make enemy of empire. There was a long pause. Then the president spoke again. We need to discuss this with our allies. I'll have an answer in 12 hours. Those 12 hours felt like years. The Valtine waited quietly, expecting to be handed over. They'd seen it before on other worlds. Advanced civilizations protecting themselves by sacrificing the weak. It was practical. It made sense. It was what any logical species would do. But humans, the Valtine were learning. didn't always do what made sense. Salmon and Jinwoo worked frantically with Hyun, trying to understand enough of the Krenth technology to build something, anything, that might give Earth a fighting chance. They created rough prototypes of weapons that combined human explosives with Valtine power sources. Nothing sophisticated, but maybe enough to surprise an enemy that expected primitive resistance. Taemin organized the veterans and volunteers into defensive units. They couldn't win a stand-up fight, but they could make the Krenth pay for every inch of ground. The mountains would be their advantage, turning superior technology against an enemy that didn't know the terrain. As the deadline approached, everyone gathered in the main building. The president appeared on screen again, flanked by military advisors and world leaders joining remotely. Director Kang stood stiff and formal, waiting for orders. "We've consulted with our allies," the president said. "China, Russia, the European Union, and dozens of other nations. We've also spoken with military experts about the threat level." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "We're in agreement. Earth will not hand over refugees to an empire that enslaves and murders innocents. If the Krenth want these people, they'll have to go through us." The room erupted. Locals cheered. Veterans stood straighter. The Valtine stared in shock, unable to process what they'd just heard. "Mr. President," Kang said carefully, "the military believes we cannot win against the Krenth technology." "Maybe not," the president agreed. "But we're going to make them regret picking this fight. Director Kang, you're authorized to coordinate with local forces. Use whatever resources you need. We're going to show these Krenth what happens when you threaten people under Earth's protection." After the call ended, Mira found her brother standing outside, looking up at the stars. "They're really going to fight for us," she said in their own language. "They barely know us. We brought death to their world, and they're going to fight." Hyun didn't answer for a long time. He was thinking about all the worlds they'd fled through, all the civilizations that had turned them away or tried to trade them to the Krenth for mercy. He was thinking about the human rancher who'd decided to help simply because people needed help. About the college girl who'd stood up to her own government. About the old soldier who was preparing to fight a war he couldn't win. "They're insane," Hyun finally said, but he was smiling just a little. Wonderfully, impossibly insane in orbit above Earth. Satellites detected the first signs of ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 3 massive Krenth warships moving steadily toward Earth. They would arrive in less than 24 hours. The countdown had begun. And humanity was ready to do something incredibly stupid and impossibly brave. They were going to fight for people who weren't even their own species. The Krenth warships appeared in Earth's sky like 3 dark wounds against the stars. They were beautiful in a terrible way, all smooth curves and dark metal that seemed to swallow light. Each ship was the size of an aircraft carrier, bristling with weapons humanity had no names for. They hung in the atmosphere above Montana, silent and threatening. Every screen on Earth showed the same broadcast. The Krenth commander's face appeared, humanoid but wrong, too perfect, too cold. When it spoke, the words came out in flawless English, translated by technology that made human computers look like children's toys. "Humans of Earth. We are the Krenth Empire. You harbor criminals who stole imperial property and fled justice. We have tracked them to your world. Surrender them within 6 hours or face consequences. This is your only warning. We have destroyed species for less than this defiance." The message repeated in every major language, Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, Russian. The Krenth had done their research. They knew exactly how to deliver their threat for maximum impact. In the mining complex, the Valtine refugees gathered together, holding their children close. They'd heard speeches like this before, on their own world right before the bombardment began. Hyun found Daeho standing outside watching the sky. "You should give us to them," Hyun said quietly. "Your president made brave speech. But when ships come, when you see what they can do, you will change mind. Everyone does. Is okay. We understand." Daeho didn't take his eyes off the distant warships. "You don't know much about humans yet, do you? I know you are brave, but bravery not enough against Krenth weapons." "Maybe not." Daeho finally looked at the alien. "But we're stubborn as hell, and we really don't like bullies." In Washington, the president stood in the Situation Room surrounded by military advisors. Every screen showed satellite feeds of the Krenth ships. The weapons they were detecting made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. The shields around each ship could withstand impacts that would crack mountains. This wasn't a fight humanity could win through conventional means. "Mr. President, we should reconsider," one general said carefully. "We can still hand over the aliens. Avoid the conflict. Buy time to prepare for future encounters." The president looked at the general for a long moment. Then he looked at the screen showing the mining complex, where humans and Valtine were preparing defensive positions together, where children of two species played together, where medics were teaching each other how to save lives neither species had evolved to treat. "Prepare." "My response," the president said. Director Kang stood in the command center they'd set up near the mining complex. Taemin was with him along with Somin, Jinwoo, and military officers from a dozen countries. Everyone knew the numbers. Everyone knew the odds. And nobody was talking about surrender. "We've positioned satellites with kinetic weapons in orbit," Somin reported. "Simple tungsten rods, no explosives. The Krenth shields will probably stop them, but maybe we'll get lucky. Fighter jets are ready with the modified missiles," an Air Force colonel added. "Again, the Krenth shields will be a problem, but we'll try." Taemin studied the map of the mountains. "They'll send ground troops. That's where we have an advantage. They don't know the terrain. We do. We've rigged the tunnels with explosives, set up choke points, prepared ambush sites." He looked up at Kang. "It won't be enough to win, but we can make them pay." "That's all we can do," Kang said. "Make them pay such a high price that they think twice about threatening Earth again." Jinwoo and Hyun sat in a makeshift workshop, surrounded by salvaged Valtine technology and human computers. They'd been working non-stop for 20 hours, trying to create something that might actually hurt a Krenth ship. "The shields operate on a rotating frequency," Hyun explained through the translator. "Very fast rotation. Too fast for most weapons to exploit. But if we could create virus, something that gets into their computer systems, use their own technology against them," Jinwoo said, his fingers flying over his keyboard. "It's crazy. It probably won't work." "Everything about this situation is crazy," Hyun said. He'd learned some English over the past few days and the translator was getting better. "But humans seem to like crazy," Jinwoo grinned. "You're learning." The 6-hour deadline ticked down. 4 hours. 3 hours. 2 hours. The Krenth ships remained in position, silent and waiting. On Earth, people watched the sky and wondered if these would be their last hours. But very few talked about surrender. With 1 hour remaining, the president appeared on every screen on Earth. He looked calm, collected. Behind him, the American flag hung on the wall. But this message wasn't just for Americans. It was for the world. Citizens of Earth. 1 hour ago, we were given an ultimatum by a hostile alien empire. They demand we hand over refugees who crashed on our world by accident. They threaten us with destruction if we refuse. He paused, letting that sink in. "I've consulted with leaders from every nation. We're in agreement. Earth's answer is no." The president leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera. "To the Krenth Empire. The people you're hunting are refugees seeking safety. They're not criminals. Their families fleeing persecution and slavery. Earth has a long history of providing sanctuary to refugees. We will not hand over people in need no matter who demands it." He straightened up and his voice grew harder. "You claim to be an empire. You conquer and enslave. You destroy species who can't fight back. But you've never encountered humanity before. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand against tyranny, and we do not negotiate with bullies." The president's eyes were cold now. "If you want these refugees, you'll have to go through 7 billion humans. And I promise you, we will make you regret ever coming to our world. This is Earth's only warning to you." The broadcast ended. For a moment, there was silence across the planet. Then the cheering started. In cities and towns, in military bases and homes, humans realized their leaders had just declared war on an interstellar empire. It was insane. It was probably suicide, but it was the right thing to do. In the mining complex, the Valtine refugees watched the broadcast with translation. Many were crying. Mira found Jiwon and pulled her into a hug, the first time she'd embraced a human. No words were needed. Gratitude was universal. The Krenth response came immediately. The commander's face appeared again, but this time there was something different in its expression. Surprise, maybe, and the faintest hint of respect. "Humans, you have chosen defiance. We did not expect this from a primitive species. Your courage is noted, but courage will not save you." The image changed to show weapons powering up on all 3 ships. You have 1 hour to evacuate the area around your mining complex. We will retrieve our property. Anyone remaining will be eliminated. The transmission ended. They're giving us time to evacuate, Kang said, surprised. Why? Because they respect courage, Yen said quietly. Krenth do not give warning to species they consider weak, but they honor worthy opponents even when they plan to destroy them. Well, that's something, I guess, Taman said. He activated his radio. All units battle positions. This is it. The hour passed too quickly. Civilians were evacuated to shelters deeper in the mountains. Families hugged soldiers, knowing they might not see them again. The Valtine who could fight insisted on standing with the humans. Yun armed himself with a weapon salvaged from their ship. Mira prepared the medical center for casualties. Deho stood with his rifle, an old hunting weapon that would be useless against Krenth armor. Ji-Won stood beside him with her own gun. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The Krenth ships moved into position. Energy weapons charged with a sound like thunder. On Earth, satellites prepared to fire. Fighter jets launched from bases across the continent. In the tunnels, soldiers checked their weapons and waited. Taman spoke into his radio, his voice calm and steady. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to make them bleed. Make them work for every inch. Show them that attacking Earth comes with a price. Understood, came back from dozens of positions. Soman watched her screens tracking the Krenth ships. They're locking weapons on the mining complex. Preparing to fire. Fire everything, Kang ordered. Satellites release their payloads. Tungsten rods. Simple and primitive, accelerated by gravity alone. Fighter jets launched missiles modified with Valtine power sources. From the ground, human artillery fired shells that would never reach the ships but might distract their targeting systems. The Krenth shields flashed as impacts hit. Most weapons were stopped completely. But one satellite rod, fired at just the right angle, at just the right moment, punched through a shield flicker. It hit the wing of one warship, tearing through armor. The damage was minor. But it was damage. On the Krenth command ship, alarms blared. The commander stared at the damage report in disbelief. A primitive kinetic weapon had hit them. Impossible. And yet it had happened. Return fire, the commander ordered. Show them the price of defiance. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the mountains. Rock vaporized. Trees exploded into flame. The humans had evacuated the obvious targets, but the message was clear. The Krenth could destroy anything they wanted. Ground forces deploy, the commander said. Retrieve the Valtine. Eliminate any resistance. The tunnels beneath the mining complex became a nightmare for the Krenth soldiers. They'd teleported down expecting to face primitive weapons and panicked enemies. Instead, they found prepared battlegrounds where every advantage of their superior technology worked against them. Taman crouched in a side passage, watching his motion sensors. 3 Krenth soldiers moved through the main tunnel, their armor glowing with shield energy. They were confident, moving quickly. They didn't know about the pressure plates hidden under the dust or the charges planted in the ceiling, or the 30 humans waiting in concealed positions. Wait, Taman whispered into his radio. Let them get deeper. The Krenth advanced. One of them stopped, scanning for life signs. The technology should have detected the humans easily. But Jinwu's modifications to their positions, using Valtine shielding principles, made them nearly invisible to Krenth sensors. Not perfect, but good enough. Now, Taman said, the tunnel exploded. Not from above, but from the sides. Shaped charges blew through rock, collapsing the passage and cutting the Krenth off from their teleport extraction point. Before they could react, humans opened fire from hidden positions. The bullets wouldn't penetrate Krenth shields, but they didn't need to. They just needed to drive the soldiers into the kill zone. One Krenth warrior stumbled over a pressure plate. The mine beneath was a human design but powered by a Valtine energy cell. The explosion was enough to overload the soldier's shield. The second mine finished the job. The other 2 Krenth tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for open combat, not close-quarters tunnel fighting. Human grenades bounced around corners. Sniper fire from hidden positions forced them to keep shields active, draining power. And then the second collapse buried them alive. Taman allowed himself one moment of satisfaction. 3 down, but he knew there were 40 more Krenth soldiers scattered through the mountains, and each one was worth 10 human soldiers in pure combat ability. This victory was small and temporary. Fall back to position 3, he ordered. They'll adjust tactics. We need to stay mobile. Above ground, the air battle was going worse. Fighter jets dodged energy beams that could vaporize them instantly. Missiles exploded against Krenth shields without leaving a scratch. One jet got lucky, slipping through defensive fire to launch a modified warhead directly at a ship's weapons array. The missile had been fitted with a Valtine power core multiplying its explosive force. The warhead hit. The shield flickered. For just a moment, the Krenth ship's weapon went offline. Then the pilot, a woman named Bohyan, had to eject as return fire destroyed her jet. She parachuted down into the mountains, alive but out of the fight. "This isn't working," the Air Force colonel said in the command center. "We're losing planes for minimal damage." "Keep them occupied," Kang ordered. "Every second they spend shooting at jets is a second they're not bombarding our positions." Salman worked frantically at her computer station. She and Jinwoo had been tracking the Krenth ship's movements, analyzing their shield frequency rotations. There had to be a pattern, something they could exploit. The problem was that Krenth technology was so far ahead that finding a weakness was like trying to hack a computer using smoke signals. "Wait," Salman said suddenly. "Look at this. Every time they fire their main weapons, the shields show a minor fluctuation. Just a microsecond, but it's there. Can we exploit it?" Kang asked. "Not with our weapons. The timing would have to be perfect, and we'd need something powerful enough to do damage in that microsecond window." Salman pulled up more data. Unless... In the workshop, Jinwoo and Hyun had been working on their virus program. It was a desperate long shot, something that would never work in a million years. Except they didn't have a million years. They had maybe 2 hours before the Krenth ground forces overwhelmed the human defenses. The Krenth use quantum communication, Hyun explained, his English getting better through constant use. Impossible to intercept. But their teleport technology must connect to ship computer for brief moment. If we could inject virus during teleport, it would need to be delivered directly to a Krenth soldier, Jinwoo said. Close range. And it would probably kill whoever delivered it. They looked at each other in silence. Both knew what that meant. Down in the tunnels, the battle continued. Minsok, one of Taemin's oldest friends, found himself cut off from his squad with 3 other soldiers. A Krenth warrior had them pinned down in a dead-end passage. The alien's weapon fired energy bolts that melted rock. There was no escape. "Cover me," Minsok said. Before anyone could argue, he charged. It was suicide. The Krenth weapon would cut him down in seconds. But Minsok had strapped every explosive he could carry to his vest. He made it 5 steps before the energy bolts hit him. He used the last of his strength to trigger the detonation. The explosion collapsed the entire section of tunnel, killing the Krenth soldier and sealing the passage. Minsok's squad escaped through a side route. They were alive because their friend had sacrificed himself. When Taemin heard the report, he had to stop and lean against the tunnel wall. Minsok had been at his wedding, had helped him fix his car 1,000 times, had been there through everything. And now he was gone, buried under tons of rock with an alien invader. "Sir?" one of his soldiers asked. "Are you okay?" Taemin wiped his eyes and straightened up. "Yeah, I'm good. Minsok bought us time. We're going to use it. Move out." In the medical center, Yoonji and Mira worked side by side, treating wounded from both species. A human soldier with burns from an energy weapon. A Valtine civilian injured by falling debris. The biology was different, but pain was universal. So was the determination to save lives. "You humans are crazy," Mira said as she worked. Her English was heavily accented but understandable. "You fight enemy you cannot beat. You die for people not even your species." "Yeah," Yoonji agreed, not looking up from her patient. "We're pretty stupid that way." "Not stupid," Mira corrected. "Brave, honorable. Words I thought were extinct in Galaxy." A young woman named Yuna stumbled into the medical center, bleeding from a head wound. She'd been helping evacuate Valtine children when a Krenth patrol found them. She'd stood between the alien soldier and the children, armed with nothing but a piece of rebar. Somehow she'd survived long enough for other humans to arrive and drive the Krenth back. "The children?" Yuna asked as Mira examined her wound. "Safe," Mira assured her. "Because of you. You saved them." Yuna smiled and passed out. Mira worked quickly to stabilize her, thinking about the young human who'd been willing to die for Valtine children she'd just met days ago. The Krenth commander watched the battle reports with growing frustration. They'd lost 6 soldiers, 6, against primitives with inferior weapons. The humans were using tactics the Krenth had never encountered, fighting with a desperation that bordered on insanity. Every tunnel was a trap. Every open space was an ambush zone. And the humans wouldn't surrender. "Sir," one of the crew reported. "The humans have updated their response." The commander pulled up the transmission. It was from the human director Kang, but the message was clearly approved by their world leaders. "To the Krenth Empire, you've seen now that Earth will not surrender without a fight. Every soldier you send dies. Every ship you bring takes damage. We can't win this war, but we can make it so costly that you'll remember Earth forever. So here's our counteroffer. Leave now. Leave the refugees alone. And we'll let you leave with your ships intact. This is your only chance for a peaceful resolution." The commander actually laughed. These humans were offering mercy while losing. It was absurd. It was insulting. And yet, looking at the casualty reports, it was also practical. 6 soldiers dead for 40 refugees was a poor exchange rate, and the humans had managed to damage 1 warship, something that should have been impossible. "No," the commander decided. "We will not accept terms from primitives. Increase ground forces. Begin orbital bombardment of military positions. Show them the cost of defiance." But even as the order was given, the commander felt something unusual: respect. These humans fought like warriors of the old traditions, when honor meant more than efficiency. It was a pity they had to be destroyed. In the workshop, Jinwoo finished uploading the virus to a small device. It looked like a modified smartphone, crude and simple. But if their theory was correct, if they could get this device close enough to a Krenth soldier during a teleport, it might work. It might do nothing. Or it might give Earth its only chance. "Who delivers it?" Hyun asked. Jinwoo looked at the device. Whoever carried this would need to get within touching distance of a Krenth soldier, would need to survive long enough to activate it. The odds were terrible. "I'll do it," Jinwoo said. "No." Boyun appeared in the doorway. The pilot had made it back to the complex after ejecting from her jet. She was bruised and bleeding but alive. "I'm already out of the fight. My jet's gone. But I can still help." She took the device from Jinwoo. "Tell me what to do." They explained the plan. It was crazy. It probably wouldn't work. Boyun listened carefully, nodded, and checked her sidearm. "One question," she said. "If this works, will it stop the Krenth?" "It might disable 1 ship," Hyun said. "Maybe, if we are very lucky." Boyun smiled. "Then let's get lucky." The Krenth flagship systems failed all at once. Shields flickered and died. Weapons went offline. Navigation systems showed error messages in languages the crew had never seen before. Alarms blared throughout the ship as the virus spread through every connected system faster than their technicians could isolate it. "What happened?" the commander demanded. What did the humans do? Nobody had an answer. One moment everything was fine. The next, their most powerful warship was drifting helplessly in Earth's atmosphere, completely vulnerable. In the command center, Soman watched her screens in disbelief. It worked. I don't believe it, but it actually worked. The Krenth flagship is dead in the water. Lock weapons, Kang ordered immediately. Every satellite, every missile system, every weapon Earth had was now aimed at the disabled ship. Send them a message. The transmission went out on all Krenth frequencies. This time it wasn't the president or director Kang speaking. It was Daeho, the rancher who'd started all of this by deciding to help people in need. Krenth Empire, this is Earth speaking. Your flagship is disabled. Your soldiers on the ground are cut off. You came here expecting an easy fight against primitives. You found something different. Daeho's voice was calm, steady, like he was talking to a neighbor about fixing a fence. Here's what's going to happen now. You're going to withdraw your soldiers. You're going to leave our system. And you're going to leave these refugees alone. The Krenth commander appeared on screen. For the first time, the alien looked uncertain. You cannot destroy us. Even with our flagship disabled, we have 2 more warships. We can burn your cities from orbit. You could, Daeho agreed. But then you'd lose your flagship and everyone on it. And we've shown we can hurt you. Maybe you win in the end. Maybe you burn Earth to ash. But how many more ships will you lose? How many more soldiers? Is 40 refugees worth that cost? There was a long silence. The Krenth commander was calculating, weighing options. The Empire had never retreated before, but they'd also never faced a species quite like humanity. Primitive technology, but combined with alien systems in ways that shouldn't work. Guerrilla tactics that turned superior weapons against themselves, and a willingness to sacrifice that the Krenth found incomprehensible. Most importantly, these humans had shown they could actually damage Krenth ships. If word got out that a primitive species had disabled a warship, other conquered species might start getting ideas. Rebellions could spread. The Empire's reputation for invincibility would be damaged. "You have made an enemy today, humans," the commander finally said. "The Krenth Empire does not forget this insult." "We will return." Deho smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. "We're counting on it. Next time we'll be ready, and we'll have friends helping us." He gestured off-screen where Valtine engineers were already working with human scientists. "You showed us the galaxy isn't empty. You showed us there are threats out there. Thank you for that lesson. We won't make the mistake of being unprepared again." The Krenth commander's expression hardened, but then surprisingly it gave a small nod, a gesture of respect between warriors. "Your courage is noted, humans. Few species have earned this acknowledgement from the Empire. You are worthy opponents." The transmission ended. Over the next hour, Krenth soldiers teleported back to their ships. They left their dead behind, which Taman knew was significant. The Krenth never left bodies unless they respected the enemy who'd killed them. When the last soldier was retrieved, the two functional warships moved to flank their disabled flagship. Slowly, carefully, they began towing it away from Earth. The fleet accelerated out of the atmosphere, out of the solar system, and finally jumped to faster-than-light travel. The Krenth were gone. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the cheering started. In the command center, soldiers hugged each other. In the tunnels, Taman's forces emerged into daylight, exhausted but alive. Around the world, humans who'd been watching the sky in terror realized they'd survived. Earth had fought an interstellar empire and won, not through superior technology, not through overwhelming force, but through courage, sacrifice, and the simple refusal to abandon people in need. Bo-hyun woke up in the medical center 3 days later. The last thing she remembered was activating the device. Everything after that was blank. Hyunji and Mira were both there when she opened her eyes. "Did it work?" Bo-hyun asked, her voice rough. Unji smiled. "You disabled a Krenth warship and saved Earth. Yeah, I'd say it worked. The cost had been high. 217 humans dead, 412 wounded, 6 Valtine refugees killed in the bombardment. Property damage in the millions. But they'd survived. And more importantly, they'd shown the galaxy that humanity wouldn't be pushed around." The funerals lasted for weeks. Min-seok was buried with full military honors, his sacrifice ensuring that dozens of others survived. Every person who'd died defending the refugees was honored as a hero. The Valtine attended every funeral, mourning alongside humans for people they'd barely known but who'd given everything to protect them. Hyun stood at Min-seok's grave with Taman. Through the translator, he spoke quietly. "In our culture, we have a word, Namin. It means someone who protects strangers at cost to themselves. It is highest honor we have. Your friend was Namin. All who died were Namin." Taman nodded, not trusting himself to speak. After a moment, he said, "Min-seok would have liked that. He always tried to help people. Didn't matter who they were." The world changed rapidly after the Krenth left. The United Nations formed a new agency dedicated to planetary defense and alien relations. Every nation contributed resources, technology, and personnel. The age of humanity competing only against itself was over. Now they had to prepare for a galaxy full of threats and opportunities. The Valtine were granted asylum officially, but more than that, they were welcomed. Hyun and other engineers began working with human scientists, sharing knowledge that would accelerate Earth's technology by decades. Mira opened a medical research center that studied both human and Valtine biology, making breakthroughs that helped both species. Daiho's ranch became something unexpected, a community center where humans and Valtine gathered. Children of both species played together, learning each other's languages naturally the way kids do. Adults shared meals, stories, traditions. The differences between species seemed less important than the similarities. Jiwon decided to change her major to xenobiology. She wanted to understand the Valtine better, and potentially other species they'd meet in the future. She spent hours with Hyun's sister learning about their world, their culture, their hopes for the future. "Do you think they'll come back?" Jiwon asked one evening watching the sunset. "The Krenth?" Eventually, Mira said. She'd gotten much better at English, barely needing the translator now, but by then humans will be ready, and you will have allies. Word is spreading through refugee networks about Earth, about the planet that stood against the Empire. She smiled, her glowing markings pulsing softly. "Other species are talking about you humans. Some think you are crazy. Some think you are heroes. All agree you are interesting. 6 months after the Krenth left, the first refugee ship arrived intentionally. Not a crash, but a deliberate journey. A small group from a species called the Telani, fleeing persecution from another empire. They'd heard the stories about Earth. They came seeking sanctuary. Director Kang, now heading the Alien Relations Agency, met with them officially. The decision was put to a vote among world leaders. It was unanimous. Earth would continue offering sanctuary to refugees. They would become what Mira had called them, a shield against tyranny. Taman took charge of training programs for the new Earth Defense Force. Veterans and recruits learned alongside Valtine instructors. They combined human tactics with alien technology, creating a fighting force unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Not the strongest, not the most advanced, but innovative and absolutely stubborn. Soman and Jinwoo led the research teams reverse engineering alien technology. They were careful, ethical, always consulting with their Valtine partners. The goal wasn't to copy blindly, but to understand and adapt. Human engineering principles combined with alien physics created entirely new possibilities. A year after the crash, they held a ceremony at the mining complex. It was being converted into a permanent settlement, a place where multiple species could live and work together. A monument was erected listing the names of everyone who died defending the refugees. At the top was a simple inscription in English, Valtine and a dozen other languages from species that had heard the story. Here, humanity chose compassion over fear. Here they stood between the helpless and danger. Here they showed the galaxy what it means to be human. Daeho stood with Hyun looking at the monument. The alien had become a friend over the past year, someone he shared coffee with most mornings and complained about the weather with like any neighbor. Your people changed everything, Hyun said, not just for Valtine. For Galaxy, refugee species are finding hope again. Some even talk of fighting back against empires, because they see that standing up is possible. We just did what was right, Daeho said simply. That is exactly why it matters, Hyun replied. Most species do what is practical, what is safe. You did what was right even when it was dangerous. That is difference.